Dragon's Dogma, The Beginning. Written by Ryo Mizuno. Translated to English by Liz of Kutan Cosplay. Narrated by Chainsaw McFacepunch. Chapter 5. It was evening when Sald returned to his master's side. He had gone over that day's events in his mind, searching for a way to soften the blow. But it was hopeless. In the end, he reported everything to Savan, exactly as it had happened. Savan listened from start to finish without saying a word. Once the report had ended, he immediately left the encampment at a run, heading for the dragon's lair. A long cry tore from his throat. Sald followed him. After some time, they crossed paths with the routed army. Savan came to a stop and looked around him in shock. Sald had given him an idea of what to expect, but this was far worse than he had imagined. Every single person there was wounded. For many, it was all they could do to walk. Others were being carried over shoulders, or on improvised stretchers. Of those, some had already breathed their last. "The encampment is just ahead. We must see to the wounded as quickly as possible," Savan shouted at the top of his lungs. There would be a supply of medicine and bandages, warm meals and blankets. He feared it would do little to help these men, but it was better than nothing. "You Leonites." As Savan moved about the crowd, one man slowly sat up from his stretcher. His head and right eye were wrapped with a bandage soaked in blood. Savan turned around. He could not see the strange man's bandaged face clearly, but he recognized his voice and the emblem on his breastplate. It was Margrave Bauer. "Lord Bauer," Savan stuttered, taken aback. He approached the Margrave unsteadily. "A sorry state I'm in, eh?" Bauer smiled stiffly. "You had best not speak." "My wounds have already been closed with magic. 'Tis yet to be seen whether I survive, but speaking will make no difference now." Bauer unwrapped his bandages with a huff. His left eye was crushed, and his hair was sticky with clotted blood. His skull must have been cracked. The wound may have even reached his brain. It was surely a fatal wound. Savan could not find any words, and merely bowed his head. "We've walked straight into the dragon's trap," the Margrave laughed ruefully. "And what's more, the God King left us to die." A hateful look flashed in his right eye for an instant before he groaned. "But it was I who recommended the worm hunt to him. The responsibility for this defeat falls on my shoulders." He shook his head forcefully. "I was prideful. I thought I could defeat the dragon by my own hand. But now I have seen for myself. There is no way any human can win against such a foe. Did the God King truly kill the dragon so many times before? Why does he stay his hand now?" Bauer was speaking more to himself than to Savan. In any case, Savan had no answers to give. "Perhaps the dragon truly is an agent of the Maker, sent so that men like I might realize their arrogance, to show the futility of struggling in the face of such power." Bauer looked up to the sky. Like tears, blood from his wounded left eye flowed down his cheek. "I will fight." Savan lowered his head. Determination shone in his eyes. "Even if it is a hopeless battle. Even if my foe is sent by the Maker himself." "If that's so," Bauer nodded, "then I will pray for your victory." He extended his right hand to Savan, and they shook hands. With that, Bauer lay back down on his stretcher and was carried off towards the encampment. "Master Savan." Sald had been silent until now. Savan turned to him. "We will return to the encampment and make preparations. I will avenge all the men who have fallen today. Understood, Saul nodded. The two of them returned to find someone moving about within the tent next to theirs. It was the tent that belonged to the king. Savan pushed the flap over the entrance aside and entered unannounced. Inside was God King Leonard. Your Majesty? Savan struggled to control his voice. Anger was boiling up inside him. What is troubling you? Are you not happy to see me returned safe? The king asked wearily. Of course, I am pleased. Savan's expression was a mask. If I may ask, this worm hunt was conducted because of our overwhelming odds of victory, was it not? Certainly, we were more than prepared, Leonard said with a groan. But it is as you said. Even with such a large army, we were not able to overcome the worm. We have sacrificed countless lives and received nothing in return. Your Majesty foresaw this outcome from the start, and yet... There's always a chance, no matter how small. In any case, now everyone has seen for themselves the power of the dragon. They will not dare ask me to face it again. The king had an eerie smile on his face as he looked at Savan. Savan, you will return to the castle at once. All the lords who joined me here have left their domain lands undefended. We must seize them at once. Your Majesty! Savan's eyes widened. Lords who answered your call, who fought and died against the dragon. Do you mean to take their lands for yourself? If I do not take action, they will rise up against me. What use have they for a king who cannot defeat a dragon? I saw how the lords looked at me with hate in their eyes. They will never understand my suffering or my sorrow. They do not know what I have been through these past 50 years. Leonard covered his face with his right hand, still wearing his gauntlet. Just what has His Majesty suffered? Savan was doubtful, but he could not bring himself to ask. He had lost all desire to continue their conversation. Instead, he motioned to Saul and they made to exit the tent. Then you will fight? Leonard's voice sounded hollowly from behind Savan. I will. Savan stopped and turned to face him. I will kill the dragon and save Princess Elise. If I do so under your Majesty's name, there will be no revolt. You must not dispatch our soldiers. Leonard only looked at Savan pityingly. Do you know what it truly means to be arisen? It is not enough to have one's heart stolen by the dragon. Only those with the will to fight back may call themselves arisen. I no longer hold any right to that name. But soon, you too will know my despair, will know what I have lost. In the end, all that was left to me was a throne, an empty, meaningless reward. The dogma that rules this world serves only to extinguish all hope. Savan frowned. He did not follow Leonard's line of thought, but it seemed the king had finished his speech. He was slumped in his chair, shoulders trembling. For the last time, Savan bowed to the king. Then he left the tent with Saul at his side. Will this all become clear to me when I face the dragon? Savan asked Saul as they walked. More than anything, it was just a question to reassure himself. Just what is the dragon? What was the despair His Majesty spoke of? Are you not afraid? Saul asked. I am afraid, yes. Not just of facing the dragon, but more than that, of learning the truth. Savan looked at Saul. But I am not alone. I have you by my side now. That gives me strength. I am grateful to hear it, But you are strong now, Master Savan. I fear I may no longer be much help to you. When I first called you forth from the rift, I remembered my father's face. Perhaps that is why you bear such a strong resemblance to him. Saud looked surprised. I was unaware, Master. I looked up to my father more than anyone. There was no one who was stronger, or more virtuous, or more kind. My only wish was to become a man he could be proud of. And now, it is because you are with me that I can go on. Will you continue to fight with me, to the end? There is no greater honor for a pawn, Saud bowed humbly. Savan nodded, then looked to the path ahead. Evening was falling. Within the red orb of the setting sun could be seen a small black silhouette, flying above the mountain before them. It seemed to await the arrival of Savan, the true Arisen. And so, time took its course. Countless years passed. At the end of his long journey, he was in the rift, a fragment of consciousness. Time held no meaning in this place. Past, present, and future, an eternity and a fleeting moment, endlessness and a single point in space. All were melded together in chaos. He waited for the voice to call him forth again. Something was approaching. With each step, the rift shuddered, and with each step, the anticipation inside him swelled. The voice echoed around him. Open your eyes. Once again, his spirit began to take form, so that he might fulfill his duty as a pawn. And now an afterword from the author. Thank you for reading The Beginning. I am the author, Ryo Mizuno. I work as a novelist as well as a game designer. This novel was written in collaboration with Dragon's Dogma. When I was asked to write this, I spent a lot of time thinking about the best approach. Since it would be included with the game as a bonus, some people might read it before they played. Thus, it was important to avoid spoilers, but at the same time, the story had to connect with the game in some way, or there would be no point. In the end, I came up with this work, The Beginning. This is not a standalone work. It is missing some fundamental elements of a novel, particularly the typical plot structure. It is only a prequel to the game's prologue. In other words, it is an introduction to the introduction. You can safely play Dragon's Dogma without ever reading it. However, if you read it before starting the game, or after beating it, I think you will feel a little deeper connection with the world of Dragon's Dogma. It would be more than I could hope for if by reading this novel, you can understand some aspects of the story that are difficult to communicate through the game itself. Dragon's Dogma exemplifies the fantasy genre. Many of the monsters originate from mythology, and the weapon and armor designs are based on literature. But at the same time, its world feels original and bold. It is an honor to have been involved with such a work.